Hello there, my name is Ichi and welcome. This is going to be a response video that I'm making to OtakuDaiKun. He is a anime and games YouTuber. He makes a lot of commentary on social related things and lore videos on Fate Grand Order characters. And I kind of disagree with the video he made about game developers being skirt phobic, so I'm going to do a response video to that. So let's get right into it.
Game developers have presented an unyielding fear of skirts.
An unyielding fear of skirts? Really? Now, game developers are not scared of skirts simply because they changed one character's skirts into a shorts, which is like, doesn't make a lot of sense to me there, but I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Let's assume that this is true. So what? Them changing skirts, what does that change for you?
Welcome back to OtakuDaiKun. Dai here. Yes, fear the skirt. That's the sentiment that seems to rub off on me most, from the way game companies in their respective ethics departments have been treating their content.
First of all, the choice to put a skirt into the game or not has nothing to do with the ethics department. The ethics department only has to do with legal things concerning the game, such as what they're allowed to depict in the game, licenses, and stuff like that. A whole bunch of legal mumbo jumbo. The choice to put a skirt in the game is exclusively for the artist. The artist chooses whether or not a character is wearing a skirt or not, so...
The two most recent cases are, of course, Tifa from the Final Fantasy VII Remake, suddenly wearing spats under her skirt.
The reason why Tifa is wearing spats underneath her skirt in the Final Fantasy VII Remake, as opposed to the other times that she's been depicted as in Final Fantasy VII Original and the Dissidia series, she's wearing a skirt in the Dissidia series with no spats underneath because her character doesn't matter. I'm gonna get a bit more into why it matters, why her character doesn't matter a bit later on in the video, but it has to do with theory of mind, which I'm gonna explain to kind of wrap up all the points he's making.
And the transformation of Jill's miniskirt into a skort, on top of her classic outfit being relegated to a pre-order bonus. In both cases, the presented reasoning seems to be about making things more practical for the female heroes.
Jill's original outfit for Resident Evil 3 had her wearing a skirt and a tube top. Now this is completely fine in the 1999 version. However, you didn't see Jill's panties in that game, so why should you be able to see it in this one? Her wearing short shorts, what does that matter? If you actually paid attention to the actual content of the game, she was in bed at the beginning of the game while the whole zombie apocalypse happened. So why the fuck would she be wearing a skirt while sleeping? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Who are undoubtedly found in action-oriented situations. Now, let's not get petty. These changes are indeed quite small. They're not game-breaking by any means. It's not like spats or skorts are unattractive either.
Then you should have ended the video right here. What's the point of continuing on if you know that these are inconsequential?
I appreciate how Chie from Persona 4 wears spats, knowing she's gonna be throwing high kicks. Kanbaru Suruga from Monogatari wears them too, and in that context she's quite lovely. That said, the way game developers have been altering classic designs does raise concerns about why a bit of undies demands so much realism in games that literally have magic and the characters get struck by rockets and explosions without losing all of their limbs.
The reason why it's unrealistic for a female character to be showing their underwear is because you need to have it be as realistic as possible when it comes to the character in question, not what's happening around them. It's a power fantasy. That's why the explosions and all that, you're supposed to put yourself in their shoes and enjoy a crazy story that's not exactly reality, but the characters themselves need to be realistic so that you can more easily put yourself in their place. Video games, in their base, are escapism, are a way for you to put yourself in the character's shoes and enjoy the story, or enjoy the gameplay. There isn't really a point in having their panties out because that's unrealistic. These females are going into combat situations knowing fully well that it's going to be exposed. I don't know any girls who would willingly expose their panties when they could have a choice to not do so. And Tifa is a bartender, which means that she's gonna be running into the asshole guys that come into the bar trying to flip her skirt up. Her wearing spats makes perfect sense in this case. I don't really get what your issue with that is. But she is a fighter. She is going into fights, and wearing spats underneath it is just a way for her to preserve her modesty while still accentuating her femininity by wearing a skirt.
Let's be honest, far less realistic games have had the same fear of skirts. The more recent Smash Bros. Games have opted to cover up all female skirts, or replace them with vacuous dark voids, when in previous entries it was never an issue, which is weird since none of them were all that revealing to begin with. No granny panties for you!
Smash Bros. Is a Nintendo property. Nintendo games are mostly targeted at children. Unlike the previous Smash games that were targeted at teenagers, the ESRB rating for Smash Ultimate is actually E for everyone. So therefore, they had to change the way the characters looked. You can't be having Peach's panties in screen every time she does a kick. It's to prevent sexualized images from reaching children.
Star Ocean integrity and faithlessness likely also suffered from Square Enix's ethics department.
Again, the ethics department has nothing to do with character design.
During development, the character Miki was confirmed to have her ordinary undies swapped out for much larger ones. Now, this is exceptionally petty, but that's really the point, isn't it? The devs confirmed they gave her more clothing to avoid flack from overseas consumers, as if such tiny changes really make much difference.
This point will also come back into the theory of mind thing I'm gonna wrap up the video with.
The same silliness recently hit with Grand Blue Fantasy Versus. To appease the esports crowd, the devs turned Zeta's bottom into the tiniest spats imaginable, a change so small I couldn't tell at first without a direct comparison. You might say that it's petty for fans to complain about such a small change, but by that very same token, I ask why devs and censors are so concerned over barely an inch of cloth.
Then what difference does it make? I really don't understand what the problem here is. So what? It's 2 inches of skirt. 2 inches goes a long way with ESRB ratings, I'll have you know. But it doesn't go a long way with having your dick up.
All of this came to a head when the latest entry in the Hatsune Miku Project Diva series featured a glitch that allowed skirts to, well, you know, actually act like skirts. Screenshots were taken after the game's release, depicting the skirts reasonably flying up when characters jumped up and down during their dancing. Naturally, Sega was quick to demonstrate their horror, patching it out almost immediately. This begs the question, why is it so horrible to see up a skirt? The obvious claim is objectification, that if people get that view, they'll be so fixated on it that they won't respect a character's agency. I hear it all the time.
If you hear it all the time, how come you don't listen to it?
Folks trying to protect the personhood of a fictional character, as if a bit of upskirt is suddenly going to ruin everything about them.
It does. There are studies that have been done that show that when a man sees a sexualized part of a woman, the part of his brain that associates consciousness to the woman is reduced in activity. I'll link it in the description. You can read it for yourself, but it's been proven that what you're saying is completely incorrect.
I've said it before, but seeing Tifa's pantsu in no way demeans her character. In no way takes away from her strength or agency.
It literally does.
The way she was depicted in Dissidia, for instance, has never been an issue.
It's never been an issue in Dissidia because her character does not matter, whereas it does in the Final Fantasy VII Remake.
As the Dead or Alive series will show us quite clearly, sometimes when you're kicking ass, a skirt is inevitably going to fly up and show some undies.
The Dead or Alive series is literally there just for fanservice. A fighting game where the clothes are ripping off is not there for realism. It's there for horny little guys like you.
A camera, in pursuit of the most dynamic or efficient angle, might happen to swoop beneath a skirt. And you know what I have to say? So what? It's literally nothing we haven't seen before.
If it's nothing you haven't seen before, you can go see it elsewhere. You don't have to go to video games for that. I can give you 6 numbers and I can hook you up with the sauce. Don't worry, my G. I got you.
If you go to the beach, it's commonplace for women to wear the exact same amount of clothing, or less. Heck, even children wear bikinis these days.
The thing about bikinis and swimsuits and things like that is that they are meant to be shown, unlike underwear. Yes, it's a social construct, but that is how it is. They're meant to be shown, and underwear just isn't. It's not that hard to understand.
Yet suddenly putting a skirt over that makes it less appropriate? Needless to say, our presumed morals on such things are contradictory at best. It sucks, too. Let's not forget that likely the most successful and popular children's cartoon of all time features a character who frequently walks around in nothing but his underwear.
The difference here is that SpongeBob isn't meant to be sexualized. It's meant to be funny. The difference here is intention. The intention with putting in underwear in female characters is to have them sexualized. The intention for having SpongeBob be in his underwear is so that it's funny.
You can say that's fine since he's a sponge, but that argument falls apart the moment I'm forced to see Patrick's plumber's crack. It's gross, disgusting, and horrendous to me.
I'll have you know, Patrick's plumber's crack is the greatest thing I have ever seen in my life, and I will not have you slandering it. Thank you, good sir.
And yet I had to tolerate it all my childhood, only for people to freak out the instant I see someone in their undies that I actually liked.
Nobody freaked out when you saw somebody in their undies that you like. People are not going to put female characters in undies because it cheapens their character. If the character is heavily dependent upon their personality, or the story itself is heavily dependent upon their personality, it is not going to be beneficial in any way for the personality to come across if you are reducing their consciousness in your mind.
It's as though the only determinant factor is whether people are aroused or not, which, I hate to break it to you, is impossible to avoid. Thanks, Rule 34.
Rule 34 artists are outliers. I assure you the majority of people would want to smash SpongeBob, but a lot of people would want to smash Palutena. It really doesn't make any sense why Rule 34 comes up in here.
So yeah, for some reason, it's okay or even funny when a man or someone ugly trounces around exposed, practical or otherwise, yet women usually aren't afforded the same luxury. It's a double standard. As much as you think this protects women, I'd like to counter and suggest that this Puritan attitude actually condemns women more than anything. It's actually sending the message that women shouldn't be allowed to wear certain things or behave in certain ways exclusively because others might find it attractive.
Right, it condemns women because women would actually be influenced by a video game telling them whether or not to wear panties. Do you not hear how stupid that sounds? Why the hell would a woman, whether or not the game character or anime character or whatever is wearing panties underneath or wearing spats, that has literally nothing to do with how women would dress.
Women in skirts aren't allowed to throw kicks, perform gymnastics, spread their legs, or so much as jump.
It's not that they're not allowed to, it's that they don't want to. They're fully allowed to do that as much as they want. They just choose not to because of an issue of modesty.
Honestly, some of the most tense and exciting moments I've seen in anime, games, and media in general come from scenarios in which the characters have much bigger issues to deal with than who sees their undies. Situations where women are caught when they're vulnerable and have to set their vanity or humility aside in order to survive. The most iconic example is Ellen Ripley in the film Alien. After thinking the xenomorph that's been trying to kill her died in the destruction of the Nostromo, Ripley disrobes in her escape pod to prepare for cryosleep. It's in this moment that she discovers the damn alien managed to sneak on board. You think she's worried about the Xenobuddy, or anyone else for that matter, getting a glimpse of her in this moment? Heck no, she's worried about surviving. Are there viewers out there who are turned on by Sigourney? Of course, but that ain't her fault. Then there's the scene from Street Fighter II, the animation, in which officer and badass fighter Chun-Li is attacked in her hotel room after showering. Vega, with his claws, tears into Chun-Li's flesh, drawing blood and shredding what little she has to wear to begin with. No doubt he, and perhaps some viewers, find this arousing in a cinematic way, but again, that's not Chun-Li's fault. It's more important that she kicked the living crap out of Vega's face, and she's commendable for doing so. We've also got Amane Suzuha from Steins Gate Zero, who also steps out of the shower to find herself in mortal peril. In her most vulnerable state, she is left to fight and subdue her attacker, putting any potential embarrassment aside for a more important goal. What are we gonna say? Tough luck for getting attacked in the nude. Or a woman shouldn't fight back. What if someone were to see her panties? Oh my god! How horrible.
The thing is, Ripley, Chun-Li, and Amane were all put into these situations to be sexualized. These situations wouldn't be in their respective medias if it wasn't for the sexual context, and these characters would have been completely fine without said sexual context.
It's the same attitude that causes people to shame or belittle gymnasts or athletes who wear sports bikinis or spandex.
Who the hell shames and belittles athletes and gymnasts? Incels? MGTOWs? Misogynists? So the minority of people, right? Inconsequential amounts of people. Okay, nice straw man.
Eventually, we're just going to have to get used to seeing people's bodies and stop pretending it's anything to be afraid of. To be fair, creators and artists should never have to show undies or make skirts realistically fly up. Again, it is practical to wear spats or skirts, and even if it weren't, you can still have skirts that defy physics magically to never show beneath them. Rumiko Takahashi, the creator of Inuyasha, for instance, requested that for the anime, they never show Kagome's underwear, no matter how rough her actions. It's a reasonable request. Her undies aren't a critical part of her character, and the author doesn't want them to be a huge focus. Yet, at the same time, I find it strange to avoid showing them at all cost. Does it also mean that Kagome could never wear a swimsuit? Basically, there's a difference between pointing a camera right beneath a skirt and showing the occasional realistic moments a skirt may fly up.
Okay, I'll be fair here. This is kind of weird because there is a scene where she's naked in the manga, but occasional moments. If you actually watched Inuyasha, you would know that she's in constant action mode. There's always gonna be a time where her skirt would have been flipped. And I think the writer knew this. So having her not show her skirt constantly because she's always running around and jumping and shit, her skirt will be flipped up half the time. That would put a huge focus on it.
Taking this back to Final Fantasy and Resident Evil, seeing a bit of undies during combat, or while Jill crawls on the ground, shouldn't undermine their life or death struggles.
It actually does undermine their life or death struggles though. And I'm going to explain in a little bit.
Nor should the presence of spats or skorts, but it's the idea that these devs are too afraid to show otherwise that's the biggest issue. The fact that people find women attractive should not be used as a reason for limiting their autonomy.
In what way are these women not being objectively moral here? I'd say it's objectively moral to actually have modesty, to not cheapen a character simply because little boys want their dicks to be up.
And since these skirts were never skorts before, changing them now is almost certainly a cop-out or reaction of fear.
Are you serious? Changing a design? So you're telling me that you wanted Tifa to look like this? Now? No fucking way. You're telling me that Jill's outfit changed? It's the fucking same. The only difference is that it's a skirt. You can't even tell it's not a skirt until she's crawling. Come on now.
Again, don't get me wrong, the Final Fantasy VII Remake has absolutely every reason to become one of the best games of all time, spats or otherwise, but we as a society honestly need to stop getting our panties in a bunch over, well, the sight of panties.
So now I'm going to explain theory of mind. Theory of mind is a psychological idea that everything that you look at that has a semblance of consciousness will have a backstory, or will have a set of emotions, will have a different point of view that you'll be able to empathize with in your mind. You do this subconsciously. For example, when you see a teddy bear, you automatically think that it's a happy bear, or whenever you see a character in video games, you automatically empathize with them. You put yourself in their shoes. So this is much more reduced when a character goes against social norms. A social norm in this case would be to not show your underwear. So going against the social norms reduces the character's consciousness in our minds, and this has been shown to be true with the study that I'm going to link in the description. So yes, showing a character's underwear does in fact cheapen them. It does in fact make them less important in our minds. It makes them more of a symbol of sex. They go from being an agent to an object. They get objectified. It's not that complicated. That's why artists would rather not have their characters be objectified like that. That's why when they redesigned, because they did have to remake both of these characters from scratch for their respective games, that they made them a bit different. That they made them so that people would care about what the character is doing more so than what the character is wearing or what the character has underneath their clothes. Is it so wrong for artists and developers to want their characters to actually mean something more to people other than to be fat material? This has been Kuroi Hadaichi. If you like the video, leave a like. You can leave any comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys.
You gotta notice, hey, I'm falling in love. You're feeling something.